But before we get to the individual candidates, I want to look ahead to this election season and have an overview. And who better to do that than the chairwoman of the California Republican Party? You know her well. She's been on the show many times, Jessica Milan Patterson, who has this incredibly encyclopedic knowledge of absolutely every race in California. I mean, we've done this with you before, Jessica, and we saw each other the other night at Fox when we were both on with Trace Gallagher. And it just occurred to me that it's a big election year. We need to do it all over again. So great to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, and I'm happy to do this. This is one of my favorite things to do, actually.
Fantastic. All right. So before we get to the candidates, actually, there's a really important thing that I'd love you to talk about because, as you know, I'm going around the state talking to lots of audiences. You do the same. And it's honestly probably the first question I get almost every single time, which is, yes, we hear you. We hear about how we need to fight and win and campaign and register voters and do all the good things we need to do to win elections as Republicans here in California. But what can we do if they just cheat and steal the election and nothing's going to happen? Now, I have an answer to that. I'll just tell you what I always say, which is whatever, there's only one thing that's guaranteed. The only vote that you can guarantee won't be counted is the one that isn't cast. So we got to fight for every vote, register every voter. There's no shortcut. But actually, there's more than that. There's a lot that we can be doing to make sure we have election integrity. And you've been working so hard on that in the party. And I don't think it's well enough known. So before we get into the individual races, could you just tell us what you've been doing on making sure that everything is on the up and up and our elections can be trusted here in California?
Yeah, so lucky for us, we didn't start working on election integrity post-2020 election cycle. We were actually doing it in that 2020 election cycle. And so when you have a race like we did in 2020 with Mike Garcia, who won by 333 votes, that's the perfect opportunity where it wouldn't have taken much for nefarious activities to happen.
Exactly.
And they could have changed the outcome of the House of Representatives. In 2020, we had about 60% of all of the ballots in California being watched by lawyers, staff, and volunteers. Most of that took place in those targeted congressional seats that we were working on. So those 4 targeted congressional seats, big population centers, Orange County, Los Angeles County, in the Central Valley. And by 2021, when we started working on the recall and people really started getting engaged in election integrity following the 2020 cycle because of the narrative that was happening nationally, but not what was happening here in California, people wanted to get involved with election integrity. And so we went from 60% of all ballots being watched by lawyers, staff, and volunteers to about 93.5% by the time we reached the 22 election cycle. We had a full-time RNC paid for election integrity director. We had a lawyer assigned to every single county in the state. We had an election integrity chair that was assigned to every single county in the state. And since 2022, we've only increased those numbers. Now, we're not just working on the poll watchers and election integrity chairs and people that can help us fix problems once they come in, because we have a phone line that you can call. We have a website you can go to, all of those things. But now what we're actually working on as well is getting people jobs within the county clerk's offices. So we have poll workers that have been trained by our team who are now working on the inside. So, if a box shows up at 3 o'clock in the morning, we'll have someone in there that knows what's going on.
That's just, it's a huge effort. I don't think it's well enough known. I'm really, really happy for you to lay that all out, and we should continue to do it because it's, it can be demoralizing if people think, oh, well, what's the point because they steal the election, whatever. And as you pointed out, if they had plenty of opportunities to do that if they wanted to, not just Mike Garcia's race. I mean, there's, Valadeo in the Central Valley and John Duarte's race went on for weeks, didn't it?
Right. 565 votes. We had an assembly race with Greg Wallace. He only won by 85 votes.
Right. So in those situations, that is the perfect opportunity for cheating. Anyway, I don't want to get the point is, what are we doing about it? It's not just complaining about it or worrying about it, but what are we actually doing? And you're just doing a lot. That's really, really reassuring. I mean, everyone should be reassured. I really mean it. It's a, you know, people ask it the whole time, and it just sounds like you're really on it.
We are. And that is one of the best parts of my job. When I finish an election, win or lose, I'm calling people to thank them, whether it's donors or volunteers. I took the top 25 election integrity volunteers from the 22 cycle. And without a doubt, most of the people that got involved because, you know, they were going to be the next Project Veritas. They were going to unveil some massive fraud that was going to be happening in their county clerks. And without fail, they would tell me, I am so glad I did this because it renewed my faith in the elections. Was there sometimes
Right.
incompetence? Yes. But was there anything nefarious done? No. We developed relationships with our county clerks. When we had a question, they found us an answer. If something was going, you know, that wasn't to plan, they would, you know, explain to us what was happening. And those lines of communications really help out a lot.
Yeah. Great. I
And
mean,
I
that's
always
it.
say to them, I appreciate that their confidence is renewed. But as Ronald Reagan once said, we trust but verify. And we'll never
Exactly.
take our foot off the gas, because as soon as we walk away from it and we don't have eyes on everything, that's when bad stuff can happen.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. Really, really good to hear all that. All right, now let's get to the races. Just tell us how you're seeing this year. What are your priorities? What are the specific? I mean, as I said, we're going to be featuring candidates every week on this show. It's kind of, you know, who should we be featuring? What are the really important priorities as far as you're concerned for 2024?
Yeah, on the congressional side, you know, certainly, you know, 2020, we led the entire nation in sending more new Republicans to Congress. 2022, following redistricting, we not only held on to every single one of our incumbents, but we picked up an additional seat. And, you know, with those 5 pickups over the last 2 cycles, Californians were responsible for the Republicans taking over the House.
Yes.
And in 2024, I really feel like this could be our best year yet. We're working incredibly hard, and we have great candidates. All of our incumbents are returning and are leading when it comes to fundraising, are leading when it comes to representing their districts really, really well. But in addition to that, we have a couple of seats that we can really go on the offense when it comes to the congressional side. So, of course, we will be protecting those incumbents. We've added Ken Calvert to our list of targeted seats because the Democrats are coming really, really hard on that. We just opened up what we call a battle station for him in Palm Desert. We'll be focused on Congresswoman Young Kim, Congresswoman Michelle Park Steele, Congressman Mike Garcia, Congressman David Valadao, and of course, our pickup from last year, Congressman John Duarte. In addition to that, we have 3 other seats that we are looking at really going hard on the offense on. California 9 is one that is just really, really interesting to me. You know, once we finished the last election cycle, we did an analysis. And when we saw how Lan Hee-chen, our candidate for controller, did in some of these congressional districts, we saw a roadmap where individual voters were perfectly comfortable voting for a Republican. We just got to give them the right Republican.
Right.
And in California 9, our congressional candidate lost by about 15,000 votes. Lan Hee-chen won by about 11,000. So
wow,
it's a swing
that's
universe.
so interesting.
25,000 people.
Where is that?
That's in the Stockton area. So it's got a little bit of the
Great.
East Bay and then goes into the Central Valley. And we think we found a really great candidate in the current mayor of Stockton, Kevin Lincoln. The party is already endorsed in that race. He is working incredibly hard.
He's great. I've met him. He's terrific. Yeah.
He's fantastic. Yeah. So this is a seat that's about a D plus 15. To put that in context, it's a little bit harder than John Duarte's seat, but a little bit better than David Valadao's seat. So this is certainly not territory that we're unfamiliar with. When you go down to Orange County, that would be our next offensive target, and it's California 47. There is a slide that is going around in circles, nationally about the seats that Republicans won. And when you see the spending differential on the candidate side, the seats that we won, we only outspent the Democrats by about $60,000. The seats that the Democrats won that were targets, they outspent us by about $2 million. In California, we made up for a lot of that. Katie Porter alone had about $29 million.
Yes.
And so Katie Porter, as we all know, is running for Senate. We now have her open seat. This is a D about +2 seat. And we have a huge opportunity. We have former Assembly Republican leader Scott Baugh running again, has huge name ID there, and no one works harder. The California Republican Party, again, has already endorsed in this race. And this is, we see as probably our number one opportunity
Great.
nationally.
He's great. Yeah. I mean, and Scott's been on the show, and we'll have him back for sure, as well as it's Kevin, isn't it?
Yeah, Mayor
District
Lincoln,
9.
yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Great.
Then the final offensive target on the congressional side is California 49, and that is the 11 seat. And this is, again, is a seat that's been a little bit elusive to us. It's about a D+3 seat on registration. And so we really think that we're in striking distance. We've got a couple of great candidates in that race. The party hasn't taken a position on the candidate there yet, but I think whichever candidate emerges from the 49th, we're going to be all in on this seat because we really think that this is a place where we can pick up another seat and definitely make the Democrats go on defense.
Fantastic. I love that. I mean, that it's great that, we've got this, we're on the march. We want to get more, we're not just sitting back and thinking, well, we'll just hold on to what we have. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's go to the state legislature. Yeah. What's the story there?
So on the legislative side, let's start with the Senate. There's really going to be 2 protects and then 1 opportunity for pickup. On the protect side, we have Senator Scott Welk is term limited out, so he is retiring. We have former Assemblywoman Suzette Martinez Valadares. She does have a primary opponent in DJ Hamburger. The party has not endorsed in this race yet. But we believe that this is a seat that we can absolutely hold on to, but it is a really tough seat. The seat is about 3 points better than the assembly district that she just ran in, and she just lost by about 500 votes, one of the closest races in the state. So this is a seat that we believe that we can hold on to in November, but it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of resources to make sure we hold on to that seat.
And where is that?
That is in the northern part of Los Angeles. So it's got Santa Clarita area, Antelope Valley, and then it also has part of San Bernardino in there as well.
Got it. Okay.
Then moving over to the Inland Empire and Desert area, we've got Rosalía Ochoa Bogue. This seat is about a D+2. The reason why it's on our target list is because so much of the area following redistricting is new to the senator. But there is no one that works harder. I was just out in the desert on Saturday for this grand opening. And the resources also coming over on the congressional side, it also overlaps with Assemblyman Greg Wallace's seat. So this is going to be really a battleground area. She's working incredibly hard. Party has obviously already endorsed her, but that is a seat that we have to protect as well. Then the real opportunity for pickup is in Orange County, and that's SD 37. It's currently housed with 2 senators in it following redistricting. You've got Senator Josh Newman, who is going to be running in that seat. And then, of course, you've got DUI Dave Min, who is running in that open Porter seat for Congress. So the portion that Senator Josh Newman actually represents is just a really small portion. And when you see this district and the way that it is drawn, you'll think to yourself, what was the redistricting committee doing when they drew this? It looks like a dinosaur. And the portion that he represents is just the very tip of the dinosaur's tail. And he's got 6 opponents coming after him on the Democrat side. We've got 4 Republicans that are in that race. So again, the party hasn't taken a position on that race, but this is a seat that we really think that we have the opportunity to, in my opinion, take back. I think this is a very similar seat to the one that Senator Ling Chang used to represent. So I think that we have a good opportunity with that seat as well. Over on the assembly side, quite a few protects, because our assembly caucus did so incredibly well following redistricting last year. So there was a lot of bright spots. We've got Assemblyman Josh Hoover, who took out a 10-year incumbent up in the Sacramento area.
Yeah, he's great. We had Josh on the show a few times. He's
He's
fantastic.
wonderful and is really representing his district so incredibly well in Sacramento. And, that will be a seat that's hotly contested because it was such a close race last time around. So that's one we're going to be spending a lot of resources in. Another protect that we're looking at is Assemblyman Greg Wallace. As I mentioned before, I jokingly call him Landslide Wallace. He won by 85 votes. And so this is in the
It's
desert
amazing,
area.
isn't it? Yeah.
It really is. And this is going to take a lot of resources. I think incumbency matters. So for both of those candidates, Josh had taken out an incumbent last time. Greg was running in a open seat, but the incumbency matters. So I think there's going to be a lot of resources for both of them that weren't necessarily there. People staying out of the race, seeing what happened. But I think that they've proven themselves and to be good representatives for both of those areas as well. The third real protect target that we have is Assemblywoman Lori Davies. She did very, very well in her redraw. The northern part of San Diego is probably the tougher part of that. She's got, Southern Orange County along with the northern part of San Diego in that district. That coastal area, I often say that, we're relying a lot in these valley seats on independents and soft Democrats who've been disillusioned with what Democrats are doing in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. Our coastal Republicans need to come in stronger. And fortunately, we've got an amazing coastal Republican woman running in this seat. But it's going to be a different turnout model in a presidential year. So this is one that is definitely at the top of our target list. It's definitely at the top of the target list for the Democrats as well. Our biggest opportunity for pickup on the assembly side is Assembly District 76. This is where we have Christy Bruce Lane running. It's an open seat this time around. She ran last time and really gave Assemblyman Brian Mainshine a run for his money. I think one of the challenges that, our Republican candidates have had running against him is that he was a Republican for 20 years, whether it was on city council or running for city attorney or as a Republican legislator for a decade. They were used to voting for Brian Mainshine, the Republican. We're not going to have that problem this time around. Christy Bruce Lane has done a fantastic job of clearing the field. We have already endorsed her. So she's going to be working hard. I think this is a seat that we can absolutely pick up this cycle.
I wanted to ask you just what you meant in terms of the different electorate. That was interesting what you said there. How does the fact that it's a presidential year affect things?
Well, particularly if President Trump ends up being at the top of the ticket, we see, and we've seen in multiple election cycles, there are people that are only turning out because President Trump is on the ballot. I think about the difference from 2020 to the recall. There was 2 million people that voted for President Trump that did not turn out in the 2021 recall. And these types of things makes a difference. At the same time, on the other side, there is going to be people that are turning out because it is a presidential year. We just have a higher increase in those that are engaged, that are watching, because the national side of it is very fun and exciting to watch.
Yes. Okay, cool. What about below the legislature? I mean, there's all the there's school boards and things like that, I'm guessing. You've got, I know, everyone, a lot of attention on what's going on in Los Angeles in the district attorney. I mean, these are non-partisan races. Is that correct? So do you not get involved as a party in anything below assembly? Is that how it works?
No, that's not how, a little bit, but we take our lead from the county parties. So even in those legislative races that I talked about, we don't endorse until our county parties endorse. I think this is part of my Republican values. I believe that the government that is closest to you that has the most effect on you, right? So we saw in the COVID years, right? There was a lot of school boards who were making the decision not to listen to the state and to do what was right for their particular school board. And so in that same vein, I, can't imagine coming into a county party and saying you should be endorsing these candidates for school board. I would follow the lead of each one of those 58 county
Right.
chairs and doing what's best for their area. So there are a lot of places that we do get engaged, but it has to start at the county party level first. And then in addition to that, we offer a lot of resources. So our California Trailblazers program is probably the biggest resource that we offer
Hmm.
to Republican candidates that are running at every single level of government. In the last cycle, we trained over 1,500 candidates, most of which were at the local level. In 2023 alone, we've already trained over 400 candidates that are preparing to run for office in this coming election year.
It's really amazing. Look, as I said, I'm going around quite a bit now. I'm meeting the local parties and doing county party events and so on. And one thing I'm really struck by is just the quality of the candidates. You meet these people and you just think immediately, wow, you just feel so right for this district. You feel really impressive and inspiring actually, and just like a really kind of good person. And so I'm really struck by that everywhere I go actually.
It's something that I think is really important. I think there's some people in the business that put a lot into environment, they put a lot into resources. I truly believe that candidates matter. I think
Yeah.
that having someone like Congressman David Valadao, who's a dairy farmer, or Congressman John Duarte, who is a farmer in his district, right? This is the Central Valley. This is the breadbasket for the entire country. It makes
Mm.
sense that we have farmers there.
And also, I'm seeing. I'm just. This is completely anecdotal, but it feels to me like there's a lot of military uh,
Yeah,
running for
absolutely.
us. I'm
I
meeting
think
people all the time, Marines and so on. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there's something about the patriotic nature,
yeah,
the desire to continue to serve, and you know, running for office is something that is truly continuing on that service to our country.
yeah. It's really interesting. Look, oh, one thing we haven't mentioned. I guess it's we'll know reasonably soon. The Senate race, Steve Garvey. How are you seeing that?
Well, it's certainly exciting, especially for a girl who grew up in East LA to watch a Dodger enter this race. You know, we haven't taken a position at the state party, but him being invited to the debates, that's a huge deal.
Yes.
Usually there's a lot of Republicans that are just left by the wayside because the Democrats don't think that we can compete at that level. So that is a big deal. We've seen multiple polls in a row now where he is coming in that second person spot. So it's going to be exciting. I think that's very helpful to the down ticket. You know, one thing that we've tried to do and have been successful at since I've been chair is making sure that we had a Republican in all of those statewide spots. So I'm hopeful that we
Yes.
get there for 2024 as well.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. I mean, we should point out it's not Steve Garvey's according to the polls, he's the one that's looking like he's going to get into the top two under the system we have. There are other candidates. Eric Early, for example, been on the show a few times, and
Exactly.
so he's there. So we're not quite at that point. I'm just reflecting what the polls are saying, but the polls can be wrong, as we know.
Yeah.
Um, and so, what do you feel? So you've one other thing I wanted to ask you about actually, and this really applies to where we started the congressional races. I read a story just before the holidays, or maybe a couple month or so before holidays, about Rick Caruso, who's been on this kind of political journey. Where, I mean, before I was here, I mean, he was known as he was a Republican, wasn't he? I mean, I go down to Orange County and people know him there, and he has his boat there in Newport Beach or whatever. And oh, he's a big Republican. Then he ran for mayor of LA, and went to be from, and then sort of quickly went to being independent, and then all in as a Democrat, very implausibly as far as most people were concerned. But now he's really doubling down on that. I read a story that he's been in talks with Hakeem Jeffries in DC, and he's made a commitment to the Democrats to put, and this was the quote that I saw, hundreds of thousands of dollars into defeating the exact candidates that you were talking about at the top in the closest congressional districts.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of like Michael Bloomberg 2.0. And I don't really know how far that ends up getting you. Certainly for Bloomberg, who ended up wanting to run for president, you know, it didn't really work out very well for him. So we'll see what it actually means at the end of the day. But I think, you know, when I read his first statement about why he was becoming a Democrat, it was literally every single failure that the Democrats had. And
Yeah,
if I was worried about crime and I was worried about, what was happening with the homeless crisis and our children's education, well, I wouldn't look to the people that have been in charge for the last 2 decades
exactly.
to come and fix the problem.
Exactly. I say that the whole time. It's been tried. There's a lot of people, and I know some of them who've thought that the answer is to support, inverted commas, moderate Democrats. And, a lot of money's gone into that. And where have we ended up? Just more extreme left policies than ever. And so there's no shortcut. If you want change in California, there's only one answer: elect Republicans who really believe in the common sense, practical changes that we need to make.
Well, the truth of the matter is that the establishment of the Democrat Party will not allow moderate Democrats to exist. I, in fact, call them
Yeah.
unicorns, because once they go up to Sacramento, you can look at it bill by bill. There's nothing that they
Yeah.
do that is moderate. It's either death by a thousand
That's right.
cuts or the fail of one pen swoop.
Yeah, it's exactly right. What's coming out is just further and further left, regardless of who seems to go there. But anyway, you've got a big year ahead. Thank you for being with us. If people want to get involved or find out more, or be a volunteer or give money, where should they go?
CAGOP.org. You can get everything done there.
Jessica, fantastic. Thank you for all your work, especially that election integrity stuff. So important. We appreciate it. Thanks for being with us today.